Hello and welcome to more World Cup action. This time we have another group stage match, this time Canada against the Netherlands. We join the match in game 5 with the score being 3-1 to Netherlands. So Canada will be looking to at least tie up this game in the last two here, well, by winning the last two games. So my initial impression looking at this board was that I don't want to play it because it seems very disgusting and nasty. There's no villages, there's no nice things to do here. It seems very rudimentary and primal almost. However, xyrix, the Canadian, is xyrix by the way, Jan is the Netherlands person, the Dutch person, that's what they call them, right? Yeah, xyrix asked me to at least publish this video. So looking at it now, the kingdom now, and from my experience from looking at the game, of course, right, there seems to be a couple of ways you could go here. There are a lot of alternative VP cards on the board, tunnels, islands, distant lands. So you could go after something with that in mind. Maybe you would want to build up with some money first and then go after those, or you could try to shoot down the provinces rather quickly. So there are more points in the alternative victory points piles than there are provinces, but the issue is time, right? What gets the work done the quickest? And I feel like if you get a couple skulks, a couple expands, you should be in a good spot to run down the provinces. So Yan opens with a silver and an island, which is very interesting. And Cyrix opens with a wishing well and a skulk. So the wishing well, okay, maybe on turn 3 or something, fine, but I don't expect it to do too much work here. Steph was saying in the chat, skulk and silver is what he preferred there. And that seems decent as well to try to get expand as quickly as possible. Opening Skulk also puts a gold into your deck right away from the first shuffle. So Yan with the island is probably saying something a little bit different. The island, of course, kinda trashes. So here, like for example, a copper was trashed, so to speak. It gets put onto the island mat. So maybe he's thinking about doing something with a thinner deck. I'm not entirely sure yet. Skull comes out and hits Yan Silva, which is kind of bad for him, considering that his only, treasure aside from copper is here. So Cyrix goes in and he starts to follow him on the islands here, right? So I feel like, okay, like, yeah, you should kind of make up your mind, if not at the beginning of the game, by this point. What am I going to do if my opponent starts contesting islands? Do I follow him? This was a nice play from Cyrix here, the stonemason into double skulk. So he has 3 skulks now, which means 3 goals, but I wouldn't get any more skulks if I were him. The skulks, they kind of remind me of Seahag at this point because they don't really do much. The hexes aren't really gonna hurt you all that often. Seahag hurts a lot more. The skulk has done most of its work by being purchased. You buy a gold for cheap, effectively. That's my take on the skulk here. So an expand here, 2 expands actually for Cyrix, again off his stonemason play. So that is a pretty nice spot for him in the deck here, right? He has a couple stonemasons. He puts one on the island here, which is fine considering he has 2. Not really sure what stonemason does here. Maybe he could have, I don't know, stonemason that copper there and then went for something else. But back to the point I was making with the islands, right? If you see your opponent go after islands, like open island and then turn 3 or 4 pick up another island, you have to kind of like sit down and tell yourself, okay, like if I give my opponent 8 of the islands, all the islands, how do I plan to make up those 16 points? And you should come up with something. And if you can't really come up with something, maybe you should contest the islands as well. Maybe you should contest it to some degree. Maybe just take 2 of them and give your opponent 6 so that the points differential isn't so steep. Um, maybe. Cyrix here, he goes for a 4th skulk, right? And you see in his hand there, he's paying for all these skulks now. Obviously, a bit unfortunate to draw 3 in one hand, but I mean, he does have 4 of them in the deck. So, anyways, yeah, like I was saying, yeah, you need a plan, right? You need a plan. Island, as well as distant lands, they take time, a lot of time. You have to buy the island, bring it around on your next shuffle, then set something aside. Then you can make use of your new, slightly better deck because you've trashed 1 card from it. So it's quite slow. What you could say is, okay, look, man, go after the islands. I'll capitalize on your slow start and try to knock the provinces down as quickly as possible. The same is true for distant lands, right? You buy it, you don't get the point straight away. You have to wait for a shuffle to come around and then stick it onto the mat, which uses up your action for the turn as well. So that could become a bit uncomfortable given that there are no sources of plus action here, and you might want to play with a Skulk or an Expand, as Xyrix is doing here. He chops our gold down here into more Skulks, so I feel like the idea here was okay, I want a gold flood, but if you're doing it via Skulk, you're also Skulk flooding. And I don't know that you want that many Skulks, right? They don't really do much in this game here. Like the Hex, Sea Hag is a better card there for delivering the curse right away into the deck. Some of the hexes they're benign. They don't do too much. Right, so all the islands are gone. I believe Yan made a stonemason play to pick up 2 islands there, and then Cyrix picked up the last one. He goes for a skulk here, so he doesn't have that many terminals, Yana. He doesn't have that many terminals aside from the islands he's been putting into his deck, and that I believe might be his first skulk, just for a gold, honestly, which is not bad. Not bad at all. So he can make, better. The islands won't collide with actions in his deck, for example, whereas it has a much greater chance, as you see here, in Cyrix's deck of colliding with things, right? That's what, 4 terminals in one hand? It's a lot of terminals, man. A lot of terminals. He does get rid of a Skulk here for a couple more Wishing Wells, which is fine. I mean, they don't, take up too much space in your deck. You'll still draw with the Wishing Well. You'll still draw with the Wishing Well. So there was also an option to go after some kind of Wishing Well deck here. I'm not convinced that that does better than some kind of Skulk money thing. Especially being able to open with a Skulk. Putting a gold in the deck right away is very, very good. So yes, finally I could probably make my point. The alternative victory points, they take a lot of time to come around, and if you feel you could capitalize on that slow start by going after the provinces quickly enough, then go for it and commit to it. This is a brutal poverty for Yan here. Um, Knocking him off province. I'm sure he would have liked to pick up a province there, but not doing so. And now we see Cyrix here turning for tunnel, and I'm not sure that he needs to do that. There's no way to discard the tunnel, of course. That is purely a victory card in this game. I'm not sure that's where he wants to go with this. Yan is going after the alternative victory points, right? So he picked up the bulk of the islands. Now he seems to be going after some of the distant lands. I know it can look a bit scary. One pile is empty, your opponent is hammering another. The stonemasons are thin, Skulk is at 1. Then stonemason is the pile king, right? Once that's on the board, game can finish very, very quickly. So Duchy comes out here for Cyrix now, so it seems like he's in full green here, buying green cards whenever he can buy them. Again, I'm not sure he needs to go there at this point. The way he gets out of this, right? If your opponent has more of the alternative victory points, you need to get your points from somewhere else. The biggest stack is the province pile, so try to build for that. So gold here instead of a distant lands for Cyrix, for Yan, which I found strange considering he was buying distant lands earlier in the shuffle, but maybe he doesn't want to clutter his deck with distant lands. Anyway, misery comes out. Yan takes misery, so that's important to keep track of. That puts him down 2 points. It comes kind of in the middle of the game here, so Yan has enough time to, adjust for it. We see a stonemason into 2 distant lands here for Cyrix. 2 distant lands here for Cyrix. So, what he's also doing by following Yan on this alternative victory point pile is putting the game very, very close to finishing. There's 3 lands, 4 stonemasons, um, and a skulk left. To the point to which I think, yeah, Yan could have ended the game on this turn if he wanted to. If he wanted to. Um, he could have trashed the distant lands with his stonemason to pick up Skulk stonemason and then purchase the last 3 stonemasons. Therefore, pile out. Obviously, he would lose, but my point is, yeah, the game is very, very close to finishing because Cyrix kind of put it that way, both by following him on the islands, distant lands, and by purchasing 100 Skulks. Someone in the chat, I think Gazbag, called him the Incredible Skulk, which is funny. But definitely, I think too many Skulks. I could see 2 expands. I could see 3 Skulks. That's a lot of terminals. A lot. It's 5 terminals. a lot of terminals. But I would play like with that and nothing more, just treasure after that. There's no room for anything else really, not even islands or distant lands or anything like that. These skulks, people mentioned in the chat, look, you could expand these skulks, sure, you could do that, but they have to line up, and they're not always going to line up, and you don't want like an army of skulks, I think. You want a lot of gold, you want the gold flood, yeah, but the skulks kind of take up space and they don't really do anything. You're not utilizing the plus by a lot of the time, and like I said, the hex, not always it hits. It hit on poverty, right? But that's like one in what, 5 turns? Not a great turnover rate. Anyways, so the game is very close at this point. Very, very close. Yan on 24 points, xyrix on 22 points, and stonemasons are on. People could end the game very, very quickly, but at the end of the shuffle, I think Yan will be very, very happy. This is the shuffle where he's setting aside all his distant lands that he bought. So here goes one of them, and there's one in the last three cards of his deck there. So he will be breathing a bit easier. Also being able to purchase a duchy, which is another pile that's running down. There's just three left there. So Jan spends quite a bit of time thinking about what to do here. Not really sure what he was thinking about. He eventually decides on duchy. Might be distant plans, but I think duchy. You just have to go for duchy there. The game is way, way too close to ending. And on this hand, I feel like Jan would be breathing a lot easier. Big 10-point gain here, pushing the game well out of xyrix's reach at this point with the duchy pile so thin. The skulks just by a thread. I think it's firmly in Jan's favor here after that big 10-point turn. So a bit of thinking here, but you have to get the duchy here. There's nothing else you can do. And just hope, I don't know, hope beyond hope that something happens. Skull comes out, lands are cursed while locusts, duchies are out, and while Jan doesn't have the win on this hand, he will have it on the next hand via stonemason to get the last skulk and a win. So the Netherlands goes up 4-1, and they actually finish the game 5-1. So that's a full point for them in this match. I left some of my notes, some of my thoughts after the game here. You can have a look at them if you want, and I put the standings also after this, so you can see exactly what position Canada is in for the remainder of the group. Alright, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next match.